This lesson will show you how to add a grade column in your Blackboard Grade Center. To add a grade column, you'll notice you've got a gray bar up at the top of your Grade Center, and you've got a bunch of options: add grade column, add calculated column, manage, and so on. We're not going to be dealing with add a calculated column in general. No matter what your column is, you're mainly going to be adding a grade column, whether it's an exam or attendance or whatever else. So I'm going to go ahead and click on Add Grade Column. And I will give the column name. I'll call it Final Exam. And column name is mandatory. However, Grade Center display name is not mandatory. If you don't fill that out, then the column name will just be the Grade Center display name. That's the name that you'll see in the cell of that particular column. But if I wanted to call that something else, for example, I could just call it Final, and then that's the name I would see when I looked at my Grade Center columns. I could also give it a description, which will be important if you wanted your students to be able to identify this particular assignment. Whatever it is that you want to type in there, I'm saying this is the final exam. It's worth, I didn't mean 54%, but what the heck, we'll call it 50% of the final grade. Alright, so once I've got that, if I scroll down, I can see primary display and secondary display. Primary display is the display that you will see as the primary display, and it's the only display that your students will see in their My Grades area. So by default, that's set at the score that you give the student. You can change that using the pull-down menu to text or percentage or letter or complete incomplete. Text allows you to just put whatever text you'd like in there. Percentage will give a percentage of whatever it is, and the letter is going to convert whatever score that you've given that student into a letter grade. But we'll leave score as the default, and now we'll go into secondary display. And if I wanted to, for example, see a letter grade myself, I could click on letter, and then that letter grade would be available to me, but not to my students. And I could also give it a category. I'm going to show you more about categories in another segment, so I'm not going to talk about category right now. I'll give this a points possible as well. I'll give it and it doesn't matter what points possible, what number you put in here. If you're going to weight your grades, you can do the weighting later on. So I'm going to just give this a score of 5. And I can give it a due date if I like. I can also, I never give it a due date, but you could if you wanted to. I can also change the options, and I could include the column in Grade Center calculations. By default, that's set at yes. I don't really see a reason to not keep that set at yes, so I just tend to leave it there. Show this column in My Grades. If you don't want your students to see a particular column, then you can check the no box, but by default that is set at yes. And if you choose, you could make the column available to the students at a later point in the semester. You just have to come back into the modify column area. I'll show you how to do that later, and change that no to a yes if you've hidden the grade from the students to begin with. And then you can also show the statistics, average and median, for this column in My Grades. So the student would see what their grade is, and then they would see what the average and the median was for that particular grade. And that's basically it. And I'm going to go ahead and hit submit. And I'll get a success message, hopefully, and I can close that box saying that final exam has been added. And if I take a look at my Grade Center columns, I don't see final exam in there. The last column that you create in Grade Center will end up at the end of your list of columns. And if I scroll down using the sideways scroll bar here at the bottom of my columns, you'll see final appears right here at the end. So that's how you add a grade column.